Let's now take you live to the British Council, where there is a lecture delivered by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers on empowering citizens, enriching nation building, fostering active citizenship for sustainable development in Ghana. It's organized by Star Ghana Foundation.
I recognize my boss, Professor Akila Kwasoya, and then my other bosses, Star Ghana subscribers and GC members, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols respectfully observed. We are deeply honored by your response this morning. We are very mindful that today is a Friday morning in November. The world goes crazy. And today there are a lot of things happening in Accra which could have taken up your attention, but you are here, and we are thankful to you. There's a major event to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the establishment of Star Ghana Foundation, October 2018. And we are celebrating this milestone because the past 5 years have brought us some success, yes, but considerable lessons and a deep sense of the fact that we need to get things done, or we need to re-strategize because we are in an urgent situation. In our quest to be a Ghanaian organization that promotes active citizens for change, we also want to leverage partnerships and resources to that end. So under the guidance of the public-spirited persons who are our subscribers and our governing council members, both in their individual and collective capacities, we've tried to fulfill that vision of a well-informed and active Ghanaian citizenry that is able to contribute to transformational change, advancing democracy, accountability, and social inclusion. And we want to be able to do this in an equitable and inclusive manner so that we are able to involve Ghanaians from all walks of life. We've tried to do this by our 3 C's and L approach, namely about convening inclusive dialogue and collaboration, catalyzing active citizenship and collective action, hoping to coordinate and support strategic partnerships, but above all, facilitating learning on an ongoing basis. Ghana is at a point where the modes of political participation and pursuit of social inclusivity are rapidly evolving. I mean, even in the last year, we've seen how citizens are trying to use the spaces provided by the Constitution in creative ways and pushing the frontiers in our quest for accountability. People are looking at where cracks are to wedge them open, wide open, in an effort to get responses and deepen democracy. And recent events, such as the pandemics, the natural and man-made disasters, demands for accountability, and other efforts have demonstrated that rights and inclusivity matter to Ghanaians. I mean, Ghanaians are interested, and they have an urgent need to see this actualized. So that even as we have transited from the program, the Strengthening Transparency, Accountability, and Responsiveness program in 2018, we have tried to create an organization that is driven by a Ghanaian agenda. If we had our own way, we wouldn't be driven by where the available resources are or what the ideological and idiosyncratic preferences of would-be benefactors are located. We would like to be free of the various political and economic challenges and shifts in development and fashions. And we also want to move away from politically convenient themes and niches. So these ambitions are terrifying, especially given the conditions under which NGOs and CSOs work now in the face of dwindling donor resources. But we are determined that we will push this through with your assistance. We are here today because of the hard work of our executive director, Alhaji Tanko. Most of you know him. Unfortunately, for family reasons, he's not able to be with us today. But the hard work of Alhaji Tanko, his management team, I see Eunice, I see Frank, a whole host of you. We are here because you do what you do so well. But we are also here because of the goodwill and the support and the collaboration that we've enjoyed from people like you, and we don't take it lightly at all. We've enjoyed the encouragement of NGOs, CSOs, of all kinds, missions and sizes all over the country and internationally. Lamnatu and Awal, I greet you. Greet you in all that. We've enjoyed the collaboration of key government ministries, departments, and agencies. I think when our distinguished moderator was talking, he talked about the NCC. He mentioned that they'll be here in a bit. We've had a long-standing relationship with Parliament, which we much appreciate. The RCCs, particularly in the northern part of Ghana, and the independent governance institutions. And we acknowledge what our donor partners have been able to do, the confidence they've reposed in us, including the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office of the United Kingdom, the International Organization of Migration, Botna Foundation, Co-Impact, and others. We've benefited from the valuable assistance of experienced development practitioners in the form of Friends of Star Ghana Foundation. Mr. Dake, I greet you somewhere in this room. Mali, okay, great, there he is. And in turn, we've tried to build the capacities of upcoming development specialists through our internships and collaborations. As part of our drive to mobilize local resources, we are actively exploring and promoting volunteerism from various dimensions, as well as local philanthropy, seeing where we can get volunteers to hold each other's hands, help smaller organizations and so on to come up and lend a hand where it is required. So currently, our work can be categorized under 4 broad thematic priorities: the rise to services, civil society strengthening, peace and security, and inclusive and accountable governance. You haven't fallen down, have you? You haven't fallen down? Okay. To mark our 5th anniversary and enrich our commitment to the vision, we've engaged in a series of activities in Accra, Tamale, and other parts of the country. But my role today is to welcome you to what is perhaps the highlight event of the celebrations and one of the flagship activities of the Foundation, the annual Active Citizenship Lecture. The annual Citizenship Lecture comes under the knowledge brokering efforts in our active citizenship strategy. Through this aspect, we try to make ourselves and our partners more effective by improving access to critical information, but also gain new perspectives and forge new strategies. The lectures are complemented by documentation, collation and dissemination of information through both physical and online channels, as well as periodic webinars. Normally, the main lecture is given by a foremost thinker on active citizenship who is familiar with the Ghanaian space, and it is complemented by submissions by exciting players and activists to provide thought-provoking dimensions on the subject or the theme. Distinguished invited guests, this year, our theme is Empowering Citizens, Enriching Nation Building, Fostering Active Citizenship for Sustainable Development in Ghana. Many ways so. Empowering citizens, enriching nation building, fostering active citizenship for sustainable development in Ghana. And today, we are highly privileged to have as our distinguished lead speaker, His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers. Dr. Chambers, I'm sure, Samson said you'll be introducing him properly. Yes, but he is a very distinguished son of Ghana. He has many secret admirers, including myself. He has made remarkable footprints in his wide-ranging working life as a lawyer, a diplomat, politician, academic, and an international civil servant. And he'll be properly introduced at the right time. I'm also delighted to welcome our very exciting discussants who, in their own ways, are making their mark in shaping our thinking on how to do things differently, changing our ethos and transforming our standards. I have enormous pleasure in recognizing the presence of Shamima Muslim, a diversity and inclusion advocate, As you know her, she's an astute journalist, a fearsome interviewer, who now, among several other pursuits, is the convener, Alliance for Women in Media Africa. Shamima, you are welcome. I also acknowledge with great pleasure Mr. Oliver Barker-Vomawo. Oliver is a lawyer and the convener of the Democracy Hub. Today he didn't come in his red beret, so I think many people are not recognizing. Oliver, you are welcome. Yes. And then finally, I'm pleased to welcome here Mr. Victor Parkwesi-Mensah. Mr. Parkwesi-Mensah, where are you? He's joining online, yes. He's a development practitioner and the founder, Center for Youth Development Services in Zambia. So, I mean, you can imagine the banquet we're going to have this morning. Yes, oh, great, yes, thank you so much, yes. On a more somber note, Samson, after my speech, I would like to crave your indulgence to observe a minute's silence in the memory of the Foundation's secretary, Mr. Akoto Ampao. Widely and for almost half a century, known as Sheshe, he's been a passionate activist, what he thinks is right, and any group of people he considers marginalized, stimulating thinker, intriguing strategist, and many, many more things. May his soul rest in peace. In conclusion, active citizens are crucial to the attainment of the Ghana that is envisaged by our national motto, freedom and justice. And to paraphrase my good friend Charles Abugri, I'm paraphrasing you, active citizenship is costly. However, the opportunity cost is even more expensive, where our society's values disintegrate and community and collective action becomes monetized. Ghana can achieve the democratic, inclusive, sustainable society in which citizens, irrespective of their different characteristics, actively take responsibility for the direction in which they want their country to go, with improved social and economic outlooks, driven by the fit-for-purpose public administration and governance architecture that is required for this. And I want to assure you that Star Ghana Foundation is firmly committed to this quest. Once again, we're grateful to you all for honoring this invitation. I invite you to sit back, engage, and also contribute as you can in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause once again for Dr. Esther. And before we proceed any further, as she has instructed, I will invite you that together we observe a minute of silence for lawyer Akoto Ampao. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you all very much. If you have encountered Akoto Ampao before, you will know that when we are counting the real active citizens, he will be on the top of the list. I have worked with him, and as described in terms of strategy, it doesn't matter that you would have seen him as being affiliated or accommodating of a particular political position. That did not matter to him. So there were many times when things were going wrong and we needed to step up and speak up. Akoto Ampao will not only show up, but will go the extra mile to provide what is necessary to do so. We had to, as the Citizen Coalition, we had to undertake a demonstration to force the Auditor General to do his work, to issue surcharges and disallowances. Occupy Ghana had picked 5 audit reports, 5 years, and discovered that monies stolen, monies misused, amounted to more than twice what we are knocking on the doors somewhere in Washington asking the IMF to do for us. And we had not recovered these monies. Akoto Ampah was central in making sure that our voices were heard. And he did much more than that. I can testify to that. Now, like our host said, sit back, relax, and get ready to be provoked, to reflect more deeply, to play your role as an active citizen. Our keynote speaker is one that a good number of us here, I'm 48, a good number of us here grew up encountering on television. That's not close distance. And he inspired us in such a profound way. Representing his people as a member of parliament in a stellar way. He's a Ghanaian politician. I don't know if today he wants to be referred as such. And I don't know if I feel like referring to him as such. Well, if he's a politician, he's one of the best we should have. He should be the example of politicians that we want to have. He's an academic. He's currently the African Union High Representative for silencing the guns. He served as Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and head of the UN Office for West Africa, UNOWAS. He was the Joint Special Representative of the African Union, United Nations Hybrid Operation in Darfur, UNAMID, and Joint Chief Mediator in charge of the Darfur peace negotiations between 2013 and 2014. As I mentioned, negotiations, which sounds mediation, Professor Akila Kwasoye's name came up. I'll tell you a story that some of you don't know, the Akosombo we enjoy today. He was the Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group. He was also the leader of that group, AFACP. He served as president of the 15-member African States, African Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, from 2007 to 2010. He also served as the Executive Secretary of ECOWAS in February 2002, when ECOWAS was a secretariat. He was the Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me with a standing ovation to welcome an illustrious son, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, to give us the keynote address.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you. I will stand on the protocols already established, but you'll understand very well that I must acknowledge the presence of our elder statesman, my Vice Chancellor, and my mentor, Professor Akilakpa Sawyer. We've just observed a minute's silence in honor of my very good friend, Tony Akoto Ampa Sheshe, who were contemporaries, and we were students who drank at the feet of Professor Akilakpa Sawyer. Professor Akilakpa Sawyer and his other colleagues at the time, very vibrant and clear-minded academics, didn't see their role as only coming to lecture rooms to propound theories and prepare our students, but they made sure to underscore that our purpose in the university was not just to imbibe knowledge, but to put that knowledge to use in transforming our society in Ghana, in Africa, and in the world, to create a better world, particularly for those less privileged than those of us who had had the opportunity of a university education. So on an occasion like this, it's important to put things in this context, and we're happy to see that even at his young, ripe age, he remains an active citizen. And I'm happy the NUC's president is here with his colleagues, students, and I hope that on our campuses, awareness, awakening, and consciousness awakening is happening. For you to be mindful of the privileged positions that you are in. If you look at the numbers of how many Ghanaians even today still have tertiary education. So you're a very privileged group, and you should be yearning to change. It cannot be that even 2023, we have the levels of tertiary education that we're enjoying. When we want to compare ourselves to Malaysia, to Korea, to Singapore, go and check what is the level of tertiary education that these countries enjoy. It's 40% upwards, 50%, 60%. So at our low levels of still less than 20%, something is not right there. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, it is a profound privilege to address you today as we gather to discuss a subject of utmost significance: empowering citizens, enriching nation building, fostering active citizenship for sustainable development in Ghana. A mouthful, as Esther has reminded us. But before I proceed, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the dedicated individuals and organizations who have played an integral role in organizing this event, particularly Star Ghana Foundation for their unwavering commitment and visible efforts in promoting active citizenship as a critical lever for our nation's development. Actually, I've always admired Star Ghana from, on the side, but coming here today and knowing who the management is, who the board members are, I'm not surprised that it is making the waves that it has been making on our country, in our country. So through today's encounter, I hope we can contribute to inspire and sustain a collective passion for active citizenship, which is undeniably indispensable for the sustainable development of our dear country, Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this 5th anniversary celebration is an opportunity also to reflect on our shared experiences as Ghanaians engaged in active citizenship. Ghana, a land endowed with abundant resources and a rich cultural tapestry, has achieved remarkable milestones over the years. However, we must acknowledge that we still confront an array of challenges, including widespread poverty, inequality, governance deficit, natural resources mismanagement, climate change, and an unequal international system, which is the context in which we operate. It is amidst these challenges that we must grasp the transformative potential of active citizenship. Allow me to undertake a little historical tour to rekindle our minds on how active citizenship led to the birth of our nation, Ghana. Recently, during the unveiling at Saba Hall, University of Ghana, Legon, of the statue of John Mensah Saba, I shared with the audience the remarkable story of this distinguished personality of the Gold Coast, the first in our country to be called to the English bar. So, just imagining the roping and the gowns and, but he was the first. I drew attention in particular to the role of John Mensah Saba and 7 other students, his peers, famously called the Faithful Eight, in the founding of Mfanspem School, the first secondary school of our country. And that was an example of what determined individuals can do in transforming society. The school had been started by missionaries. Somewhere along the line, it faced challenges. And these 8 individuals, young adults, they must have been at the time, took it upon themselves to keep the school going, to teach themselves and to progress educationally until the Methodist Church, once again, when they saw this effort, came back to support the school. And today, the school is going and can take the pride of being the first secondary school in Ghana. Later, on our path to independence, you will find individuals leading and playing active roles to ignite the quest for self-determination and nationhood. I will simply mention here Ni Kwabena Boni, who led the boycott of European traded goods in 1948 under the banner of the Association of West African Merchants, AWAM. These merchants, those days, and colonial days, they were sectors of the economy that, as natives of the land, we could not participate in, including in trading, wholesale trading. So Gold Coasters were left to marginal areas which had small margins of profit, and they could not engage in lucrative wholesale trading, etc. And to change that, it took individuals who said, no, we cannot allow this to continue. This is the story of Kwabena Boni and the Association of West African Markets, who led the boycott right here in Accra. Of course, we have the courage of Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Atipo, and Private Neodata Lamte, who led the march of ex-servicemen to protest discrimination against ex-servicemen who had paid the ultimate, they had gone and died in a fight outside Africa. And then when they came back, they faced discrimination. They were not paid the meager pensions that were due them. And they did not sit down and let things go. They stood up to fight for their rights and paid the ultimate price. These were stellar examples of active citizens. Now, formal political movements, such as the UGCC, were subsequently founded by the elite in society seeking to address the discriminatory and exploitative nature of colonial rule. Their efforts evolved into a more mass-based approach represented by the Convention People's Party, which mobilized many more active citizens to fight for independence. It is essential to recognize that the British did not one fine day decide to voluntarily grant Ghana independence. Instead, it was the initiative of the sons and daughters of the then Gold Coast who set the wheels in motion for our independence. For as Frederick Douglass once said, power concedes nothing without a fight. It took active citizens, many of them often derided as veranda boys, to fight for the independence of the country. These masses who were mobilized to go around the country and campaign for independence. Of course, at that time, there were no hotels, motels. They were willing to sleep in lorry parks and on verandas, etc. And they were often derided by the elite at the time as veranda boys and girls. It is their effort which propelled and stimulated the movement towards independence. The struggle for political freedom was led by citizens who understood their role in restoring the dignity of the African people and the right of Ghanaian people to self-determination and self-rule now, as they insisted. Key word, though, here is self, the role of the individual. This underscores the importance of individual involvement, where each and every one of us plays a part in the processes that culminate in governing ourselves. The quest for independence was firmly rooted in the idea that we should be actively engaged and take ownership of our own governance, control our own destiny. Here, the notion that we prefer self-government in danger to servitude in tranquility was invoked. Proudly, Ghana became the first nation in Africa to achieve independence. The 1960s marked a period of hope, with the people taking charge and a fervent desire for rapid economic growth and transformation taking root. Development became the overarching goal. Regrettably, over time, political inclusion, the right to voice one's opinion, human rights, and pluralism began to erode and compromise. Opposition parties and individuals started to be viewed as obstructions to the reconstruction of the new Ghana, which we so desired. Under these pressures, governance took a troubling turn as constitutions were altered to cement regimes. And this was a phenomenon not only in Ghana, but indeed across Africa at the time. The shrinking political space and deterioration of governance, combined with economic challenges stemming from external unequal terms of conditions and trade, and sabotage externally from former colonial powers, laid the foundation for the next phase in Ghanaian governance history, the era of soldiers. Incidentally, this was to be replicated across our continent, resulting in the lost decade of Africa. The culture of silence against democratically elected political leaders. It was during this tumultuous period that we bore witness to the surge of personalized rule, military dictatorship, and the undermining of state institutions. Once again, akin to the era leading in Ghana, the mantra became, "We no go sit down." This triggered the demand for popular participation, people's power, and the establishment of a democracy where citizens participate in the governance of our nation. In the 1990s, we embarked on a new course, witnessing the gradual introduction of reforms within our governance structure. Numerous initiatives were launched with the aim of rejuvenating good governance in Ghana, with a strong emphasis on the return to multi-party elections, decentralization, constitutional safeguards for human rights, term limits, and the freedom of the press. This momentum continued well into the early 2000s, during which we witnessed the emergence of numerous civil society movements dedicated to promoting good governance and economic development. Data shows that these yielded some positive results, as progress was recorded on many governance indicators measured now by many governance assessment agencies, including the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance, published by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. Opening up of civic spaces, commitment to rule of law, and constitutionalism improved remarkably in our country and indeed across Africa. Today, Ghana, despite the strides it has made in democracy and good governance, is confronted with a new set of challenges. These challenges are only termed new because they encompass a blend of historical issues dating back to pre-colonial times and contemporary challenges arising from our evolving practices. However, one fundamental reality is evident. We have yet to fully harness the potential of democracy as a catalyst for sustainable development. There are still many questions that need to be answered. Why the 70% critical elements of good governance have either stalled or regressed over the past decade? Moreover, Ghana's performance in the Corruption Perception Index, CPI, has plateaued with a consistent score of 43 out of 100 for the third consecutive time, as reported by Transparency International. In addition, the country has witnessed its poorest ranking in press freedom in 17 years, according to the Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders. Some contemporary issues, such as the fight against terrorism in the Sahel, piracy in the Gulf of Guinea, climate change crisis, and the recent COVID-19 pandemic, are compounding the challenges we face. We're experiencing increased adverse weather events, which exacerbate the vulnerabilities in our communities. Recent floods in Accra and other parts of the country, most recently in the lower basin of the Volta Lake, attest to this. The drawbacks by the global COVID-19 have been enormous, causing increased levels of poverty, economic decline, and autocratic tendencies in many countries. According to the Economic Commission for Africa, ECA Daily Bulletin for 2022, and here I quote, the COVID-19 pandemic has reversed more than 2 decades of development in Africa, more than 2 decades. In the same manner, a World Bank report observed that in 2022, nearly 850,000 Ghanaians were pushed back into poverty due to rising prices and the loss in purchasing power. Reflecting on our history, and pressing challenges we face today, I want to emphasize a crucial factor that has consistently played a significant role in how Ghanaians have not only confronted challenges, but have also triumphed over them. That factor, the same one that led us to gain independence from colonial rule, to restore democracy and rule of law during periods of military dictatorships, is active citizenship. It is abundantly clear that there is an urgent demand for citizen-driven initiatives and actions today. This kind of initiative and action is what we refer to as active citizenship, which entails participation in all aspects of governance and development. And I must add, with a steadfast commitment to the pursuit of sustainable development that leaves no one behind. The importance of participation in all aspects of governance and development cannot be overemphasized. As far back as 1990, the ECA and then Professor Adedeji convened the International Conference on Popular Participation in the Recovery and Development Process in Africa. Participants at the conference declared, and I quote here, "We affirm that nations cannot be built without the popular support and full participation of the people, nor can the economic crisis faced be resolved and the human and economic conditions improved without the full and effective contribution, creativity, and popular enthusiasm of the vast majority of people. After all, it is to the people that the very benefits of development should and must accrue. We are convinced that neither can Africa's perpetual economic crisis be overcome, nor can a bright future for Africa and its people see the light of day unless the structures, pattern, and political context of the process of socio-economic development are appropriately altered." End of quote. And altered here to ensure people and popular participation. I would wager that terms such as economic crisis, bleak conditions for both our people and economy, need for popular participation, as mentioned in the late 1990s, resonate as if they were articulated only yesterday. As I mentioned earlier, our present challenges are new in the sense that they are fusion of historical predicaments and contemporary issues. It is time for citizens of Ghana to sit up, get involved in answering the numerous questions begging for answers and solutions. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I trust that my emphasis on the importance of active citizenship in finding solutions to our development challenges does not in any way diminish the critical role of the state, and in particular, elected governance, in setting the agenda for active citizenship. A capable state has a pivotal responsibility to actively empower its citizens to engage in active citizenship, and this point must be made over and over again. Active citizens work hand in glove with the government and other stakeholders to identify priorities, establish goals, and implement policies that genuinely reflect the needs of the people. The outcome is a more inclusive and equitable development process that is truly inclusive. By fostering active citizenship, we empower our fellow Ghanaians to emerge as leaders in their own right. It is about creating an environment where every voice is not only heard, but also valued. It's about instilling a sense of ownership and responsibility for the well-being of our nation. Allow me to conclude by highlighting a couple of priorities that I believe merit consideration in fostering active citizenship for Ghana's sustainable development. Mass participation in governance and promoting accountability. It is important that we guarantee every citizen a voice in the decision-making process. To achieve this, we must establish platforms for open dialogue where ideas, concerns, and aspirations can be freely expressed. Civic organizations, community gatherings, and participatory governance mechanisms play a vital role in achieving this goal. I would like to acknowledge and commend Star Ghana for their pioneering efforts in this regard over the years, and indeed many civil society organizations that now exist in our country. Also, our government should create avenues for citizens to collaborate with policymakers, fostering a sense of shared responsibility in nation building. New systems must be developed, leveraging technology and other means to allow broad participation of the people in governance at all levels, local, regional, and national levels. In addition to national level governance, regional and continental bodies must encourage participation by the people, including in processes of policy formulation and accountability, to lead us, for instance, to the ECOWAS and the Africa of the people, not of the governments which they seem to be today. Our governance systems must be inclusive, participatory, and empowering. In particular, elections must be transparent, credible, and generally acceptable to the citizens as a mechanism for political succession and leadership change. Elections must reflect the wishes of the people. The people's choice must be determined at polling stations, not in courtrooms. This would be a pathway to stemming the spate of coups d'etats on the continent, which regrettably we are witnessing today. Active citizens must rigorously monitor the operations of electoral management bodies, security agencies, non-state armed groups, and of course we expect also our friends in the media to play their role in ensuring credible, free, and fair electoral processes. To enhance accountability, active citizenship is required to institute and make dominant what Professor Akila Kwasoya, an active citizen par excellence, calls open contracts. And here I must say that I warned Prof when he came. I didn't know he'd be here, but when he came, I warned him that I'll be using his name in vain. But this is a serious issue Prof has been advocating for, and I hope that many of our civil society organizations will take up this and pursue it. He argues that whatever the cause of failure to make contracts routinely public on a timely basis and in easily accessible form, the effect is the same. Sketchy information in the public domain, most of the time attracting little interest or scrutiny, and providing cover for incompetence and misdeeds. And here we're talking of major contracts, hundreds of millions. That just happened, and at the end of the day, we are told Ghana owes so much billions, and then you are spinning your heads trying to understand how did that come about. So the movement for open contracts is about we should know, because ultimately those contracts, those borrowings are in our name, and we shall be those who will pay for these contracts, and you can see sometimes under very painful and difficult circumstances. So I think this is a movement that we need to pay attention to, and there are many writings of Prof on this, which are available, and I will urge civil society to pay attention Yeah, let's keep our eye now on going forward on what are these contracts. Of course, our parliaments are there to do that. But again, it means that we should hold our parliaments also accountable. That let's know, and he argues that it's a whole process. It's not just by the time it arrives at Parliament. We need to track the contract process even earlier than that to really know what are in these contracts. And if we did that, if we arrive at a situation in Ghana where there's more open contracts in the true sense of it, I think we'll help to deal with many of our procurement and other accountability challenges. Empower youth and women, give them space. Ghana's population is predominantly youth and women. Many studies have shown how this could be a boom or a bane. Indeed, some are even talking today of a youth quake. If appropriate policies are not put in place to harness the full potential of the youth, then we should expect a youth quake which will shake all of us. Significant investments must be made to empower the youth and women and give them space in the development process. In this way, we can harness their energies, skills, and capabilities for the rapid transformation of Ghana. And a small anecdote. I was told yesterday in a conversation somewhere that a few of the partners are supporting a number of companies. For instance, those moving fuel, bulk fuel, etc., to train and hire female drivers. And that the results with monitoring and evaluation of some of these stations which have embraced this policy has shown tremendous difference in the performance and the output of the female drivers. They're not coming up with all kinds of excuses. The products are arriving there, in full content. Our laureate, late poet will say, logaligi, no logaligi, everything is so. This is just a small example, and we know. I mean, even those who are in microfinance, they know the difference between when you lend to women and when you lend to men. Yeah, the results are there to show. So we need to take this factor seriously. Unfortunately, there's a greater disaster that may yet hit Africa and Ghana in future if the current spate of migration of some of its best hands and brains is allowed to continue. Ghanaian youth must be given a rightful place in the leadership of the country. They reflect a large chunk of our demography. They must therefore be harnessed to lead and play constructive roles. Empowering citizens is not merely a slogan, should not be. It is a fundamental pillar of a thriving democracy. When individuals are educated, engaged, and aware of their rights and responsibilities, they become active participants in the development of their nation. As a society, we must commit ourselves to fostering this kind of engagement. Create a positive mindset and attitude, because after all, development is about a mindset and attitude. Minds and attitudes are responsible for the outcomes of all development efforts. What people perceive about themselves and the external environment influences, to a great extent, determines what they can achieve for themselves. The mind is like the software in our phone. Without it, the hardware cannot achieve anything. We must invest in creating a set of values and principles, a collective mindset that promotes and inculcates Pan-African growth and development and upholds African culture, integrity, and honesty. This should be a crucial pillar of our resilience and triumph going forward. In ending, let me say that Ghana, our motherland, we were put to the test and we all passed singing the national anthem. So it's a country with great potential. Our journey towards sustainable development should be a collective endeavor. It is the coming together of government, civil society, private sector, and most importantly, of our citizens, our men, women, youth, and women, all of us together. It is a commitment to the betterment of our great nation. It is a collective responsibility that transcends political, ethnic, religious, or regional boundaries. Unfortunately, we are seeing rearing of some divisive tendencies in our society, which we must all guard against and be careful about, especially going towards 2024. And we know ourselves. When it comes to election year, all the demons come out. So please, let calm heads prevail. It's about choosing our leaders. Let us focus on their messages. What is it that they are telling us they can do for us? Let us make 2024 an issue-driven campaign. And then, as citizens, we examine and we decide which way to go without any need for heavily armed state actors, non-state actors. It's not a war. It's about going to choose our leaders. Please. As we leave this gathering, let us take this message to heart and recommit ourselves to being active citizens, to being the change we wish to see in Ghana. Together, we can build a brighter future for our country, where progress and prosperity are the birthright of every Ghanaian. Finally, to those who doubt what an individual citizen is capable of doing, I need only remind you about the African proverb, which says that if you doubt the resilience of individual effort, try sleeping in a room with a stubborn mosquito. Thank you.
Please let the applause be louder. Let the applause be louder. Any one of you ever had that experience? Try sleeping in a room with a stubborn mosquito. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers. Please, you may resume your seats. He quotes Frederick Douglass to us that power conceals nothing without a fight. Active citizens, you'll be dealing with power. Power that is interpreted in a certain African context, regardless of the fact that the place from which the power emanates is well defined, that the power is the people's. Seven questions, don't forget about them. Why does 70% of our population still grapple with poverty? That's the first question he asked us. Kolebu, the dialysis unit, was shut for a period. 19 people died. We just knew they would die. And we watched, they died. Over what? 4 million Ghana cedis. We're just coming out of a primary, presidential primaries. It's a fact, open. Kenneth Japan paid 300 per delegate. Multiply that, say the delegates are only 200,000. They are a bit in excess of 200,000. 60 million Ghana cedis. Korle Bu needed 4 million to keep 19 citizens alive. And some of them, like those who were at the Occupy Jilobi protest, said, teachers who have spent all their lives educating our children, they can't afford dialysis. The vice president's camp gave 400 per delegate, 80 million Ghana cedis, and the party gave them 50 cedis. That was not enough for them. We are watching. We feel helpless. But we have laws. The Political Parties Act is there. The Representation of the People's Act is there. About undue influence, about treating, which in fact includes giving drinks, giving biscuits. Yes, giving the delegates malts, putting them together to give them entertainment. It's frowned upon by your law. If you are found guilty, you pay about 6,000 Ghana cedis fine. If you are not lucky, you get 3 years imprisonment in addition, and then you are prohibited from voting for 5 years. The laws are there. The Political Parties Act elevates the 3 years into 5 years. We can't be this helpless. So why does 70% of our population still grapple with poverty? That question hit me. And we are told almost 1 million of Ghanaian citizens have been pushed into poverty after COVID. Who owns our natural resources? I think these questions have to be asked again, so they will prick our conscience. Who owns our natural resources? Earlier, I was talking about Akoso Bodame relating to Professor Akila Kwasoya. They didn't give it to us for free. Kaiser and the rest of them brought it, so of course it will help us. We'll get electricity power to begin our industrialization effort. But in addition to that, they brought Valco, so that they will use the power that they had created for us for the smelter. And at a point, it became our Achilles heel in our economy. Because of Valco, we were in danger. He had to lead the renegotiation of that unconscionable contract to save this country. He asked the question, why does our food security hang in the balance due to events in faraway places like Russia and Ukraine? These days we hear we are going to add what is happening elsewhere again. Why? Shouldn't be. What has led to the precarious state of our healthcare and education system? And where is the accessibility to decent housing and other social amenities? Where are the dividends of democracy? 7 important questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a second keynote speaker. I'm only reading from the keynote address. We'll have a brief musical interlude so that you can also stretch a bit. Whilst we are doing that, please don't move away. Your snacks will be served right here. And then we'll reorganize the stage for the panel discussion. Thank you very much. But please reflect over these. what role can you also play? So please, let's get serving the snacks. I understand that we also have in our midst the editor of the graphic group, Mr. Theophilus Yate. Is he here? Okay. I understand he just stepped out. Thank you very much. As the snacks are served, you can stretch, but don't move out as we rearrange and have our discussion. Oh, I understand we are not going to do that. We are not going to do that right now. We are not going to do that. So let's have our rearrange the stage, and then we get into the panel discussion briefly. And remember that you are participating.
I want to be tomorrow. One of the things that struck me about the keynote address was one of the things that we have been doing and are mobilizing is historicizing the independence movement. And the idea that we have a generational responsibility towards our democracy today. And sometimes the resonance of what happened then strikes people differently. I think that one of the places where I found a most effective echo for using language around independence mobilization was particularly when we were in Tamale. Myself and a couple of other colleagues stayed in the northern region for 3 months, going community to community, mobilizing people in demands for a new constitution for a new generation. And for some reason, there was something particular about communicating and using independence references that resonated more than I've ever found any other place in the country. But there's something also peculiar about some of the things that he talked about, which is this idea of the persons who were mobilizing, then the young people then being called veranda boys. Today, it's hooliganism that the Governor of Bank of Ghana uses in describing what the young people are doing today. But the sacrifices and a lot of the young people who are doing and taking their time to do this thing, a lot of people do not know this. One, a lot of people are focused on my arrest, but at least 25 of Face the Country young people have been arrested and going through different prosecution across the country. None of them for any act of vandalizing or do anything. All of them connected with speech. Till today, we did a Tamale mobilization in January. So today, I continue to go to court in Tamale for one of them who was arrested for saying that the police barracks was dirty. He's been charged with incitement to public disorder, saying that the police barracks was dirty. But these are the things that we face on a day-to-day basis. Another example, one of the young men who were mobilizing with saw the police arresting Okada drivers and intervened and asked, but why are you doing this? I want to understand. And then they arrested him. When he eventually called me in their presence that he was wanted to speak to Bakavoma, the police response to him was that, we are lucky, so we are Nipa. Because the mention of my name then convinced them that this is somebody that they need to take this thing off. But these are different instances of microaggressions and the use of violence and even the policing force of the state that would ultimately discourage young people who are interested in about how do we mobilize ourselves to improve our democracy. These are things that when we look back and we talk about questions of oppression or things that persons in our independence era mobilize themselves to do, we talk about these stories as if they're things of the past, but they're happening to us on a daily basis. And this accumulates a disinterest in people wanting to do anything at all. Finally, on the questions that he posed. You know, a couple of years ago, somebody became famous for posing over 190 questions. Today, 7 have sent the whole room silent. Just 7 of them. The legacy of what poverty means for our generation and why we continue to live with this reality is, for me, a reason why I continue to speak up and do what I do. Because poverty is man-made. And the idea that we cannot retire poverty from our democracy is something that should indict all of us. And I resonate very much with the 7 things you talked about.
Thank you very much, Oliver Bakavomo. And Shamima, I want to know your reflection also on the 7 questions, looking at what you do with particularly the marginalized segments that you focus on and ensure that they also have a voice. He talks about our environment, our natural resources. Now we're all crying that we can't even resolve Galamsey. The state, with all the powers, cannot resolve Galamsey.
Thank you very much. I came across a quote from Plato, and he said that we can give a child who fears darkness, but what is a true tragedy is adults who fear light, or men who fear light. Why are they running? Why are we running? What's really chasing us? Why is accountability such a big deal? So for me also, I guess what reinforces for me is the fact that we should not always expect voluntary unselfishness from those who wield power, as Edmund Burke says, re-emphasizing the point about power concedes nothing, right, and without a fight. So obviously, we must all also look ourselves in the mirror. If you're saying that we shouldn't expect voluntary have when we look ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves the questions, why are we here today? The question why, I think all of us must answer the question why, because we have all witnessed mass conversations have always led to action. And from the speech and from the history of activism, it's always been action that has ever changed anything. So it's only going to be action that will change. Is okay with the status quo. If there's no tension in our hearts and minds when we wake up every day and look around and see the chaos that is all around us, and we actually feel safe enough to not want to do anything about our deteriorating circumstances, because the circumstances are deteriorating. And I think that when everybody was talking about the unsustainability of Ghana's debts, when everybody was shouting themselves hoarse, and the power holders seemed so distant from their reality, only for a few days later to come back and eat the words and tell us that we are going to the IMF anyway. It shows how disconnected we are and how our voices aren't taken as seriously as they should. So if you ask back to what I do with regards to marginalized groups, I recognize that we will all not be able to be activists at the same time. So I think some of us would have to be watchers, some will be talkers, some will be doers. But the people that we need to change our situation is those critical mass that can both be watchers, who watch, who see, who talk about the deterioration, about what we are seeing, and who are willing to act. And for the masses to know who is actually on their side. Because you see, when you're on activism, it gets to a point where you ask yourself, who am I even doing this for? Why am I doing this? Why this turmoil? Why this attack? Why this, despondency, when the people that I think I am fighting for are the ones who are fighting me back? So we need to also reflect on those questions as well.
Thank you very much. Vehicle number GR4367 2011. It's a Ford vehicle. Please, you are needed to attend to your vehicle right now. And Victor, what does active citizenship mean to you in your interaction with the youth in the context of what Dr. Ibn Chambers says, that one fundamental reality is evident, we have yet to fully harness the potential of democracy as a catalyst for sustainable development.
Well, thank you very much for that. It has been quite a lovely conversation so far with a truly wonderful presentation from His Excellency Dr. Ben Chambers. I got quite a number of key points from that. And when you consider it, I will drill down to about 3 to 5 of those points in terms of redefining what active citizenship will mean in terms of the social sustainable development goals, etc. Firstly, recognizing that youth, that whole population of youth is a predominant population. In Ghana, for instance, over 70% of our population is below 35 years. And whether we like it or yes, we must recognize that it is critical for us to recognize this, acknowledge it, plan for it in that way, and give young people that space so that we are not thinking of development without this critical population. It will not be sustainable. The second point is the need for youth empowerment for active citizenship. And our discussants and our speaker has really emphasized on this. Significant investments must be highlighted as key necessity to empowering the youth to provide them with a space in the development process as well as the discourse. And Dr. Chambers emphasizes the importance of this in harnessing the energy, the skills, and capabilities for youth for that rapid transformation of Ghana. We have seen it in the past in our history. We are seeing it going right now. It can only be sustainable for us if we empower the young people themselves to be instrumental in the development of the country. Through active citizenship, through activism, and through all the necessary ingredients that will bring all of this together. The third point is youth leadership and constructive roles. I was very happy to hear we have NUCs here, we have several stakeholders here. Youth leadership is critical. In fact, a lot of us, a lot of development practitioners sometimes do not want to talk about giving young people the leadership role, etc. They will make mistakes. They will mess up here, etc. We must recognize that sometimes that is what is necessary for the development discourse, for sustainability in getting things going. The fourth element you see there is his mention of the potential youth quake. And I love that particular example there. The concept of a potential youth quake, and this is where demographic dividend is talking about. The AU declared a whole year as a year for recognizing the dividends of the demographic dividend, the demographic changes across Africa. And young people, this is a time for that. But it also calls for us to meticulously plan and everybody become a youth development advocate so that we can look for the seismic shift or the impact that could occur if young people are not actively engaged or included in the nation's development. If we just make them a by the way in our development, then there will be no sustainable development there. Finally, perhaps is the fifth point of empowering citizens as a pillar of democracy. This fifth point brings everything together. Even as we empower young people for them to contribute to sustainable development of Ghana, we must empower other citizens, the old, the media, the religious authorities, the traditional leaders, all of them to be able to understand and appreciate the contributions young people can bring in being pillars of democracy. So that if an older person complains about something in the community and another young person complains about it, we will not say, oh, those are young people, leave them alone, and we go and listen to others. we can all join forces to become truly the active citizens that Ghana needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And back to Oliver. You have not only mobilized people onto the street to exact accountability. You have used, for example, the right to information law to demand disclosure of, information. You have ensured that you have mounted suits in the courts, and I know this too well because I was part of one of those you mobilized for the particular suits against the COVID-19 rules, which were against the Constitution, which clearly just chipped away our fundamental human rights. And you got the Supreme Court to pronounce favorably. In doing all of that, it becomes obvious to the public, people watching, that you have to fight certain structures in the country. Those who are looking at you want to be participant, active citizens, and seeing that you are facing difficulties in this regard. What will you tell them?
I think that the truth is, I'm a disappointment onto my parents. This is not the life they envisaged for me. I mean, my dad tells me that every day I wake up, that you were fine at the UN when you were working. What are you doing here? And that social messaging is a part of the reality that we live in. You have very little support from your family networks or social networks. Everybody sees the challenges that you face, system-wide, and how the system reacts to anything that you do. The cost of activism in this country is very, very painful. So we can put a lot of events together, and we can encourage people to be active citizens, but they look at examples like me and others, and they are not encouraged to do it, because they see that as examples of what my life would be if I do this. Unless we find a way to reduce the cost of activism, unless we find ways to build solidarity. And I always give this example. It is always strange to me for a country that has had a democracy for this many years, that when I was arrested and charged for treason, it took Cambridge University to issue a statement. The entirety of the civil space was quiet. And I always reflect on this, that if me with my social profile, this happens to, then what about somebody else? So one of the things that I am passionate about is we need to be able to build systems of find ways of supporting. That is the only way. If we truly believe that the demands of what is happening to our democracy now requires a different approach, that this social mobilizing of this kind is the way to save our democracy, then we can't throw people onto the wind, and then whatever happens, we sit in our bedrooms